Hi everybody, we made it to Mod 5, Module 5. We're almost there. One more left actually for new stuff, then the final exam module. So you're cruising along and you're doing well, so keep it up, please. This one right here is kind of interesting. Mod 5, kind of short and sweet actually. It's taking a lot of data and actually making it, again, nicer, and yet still using the program to do the work for us. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to show you guys something called text to columns. And this particular one right here has all of this written in one particular cell, B2. In B2, in C2, you see there's nothing in here. Formula bar is blank. D2, E2, same thing, right? So all of this is actually inside cell B2. If I want to have this organized, I don't want to retype this and have to go through 3111. That's the address, tab, Saunders, settlement, road, tab, Sanborn. Like that's a pain, right? So I'm not going to do that. What we're going to do instead is, again, text to columns. We're going to split this into columns. So under the data tab here, right here in the data tools group, text to columns, if you click on this, you want to go delimited. Characters like commas, tabs, spaces, or anything, that's when it's going to change. Fixed width means no matter what. It could be 10 characters long. It will then go into the next cell no matter what. And we don't want that. So we're going to click next. And it looks like every time there's a space, maybe the address, comma, town, comma, state, comma, zip. So every time I see a comma, you can see here, each one of these would be in a different cell. So I'm going to click next. Then it's going to say, okay, is there anything in here you want to change? For example, like this one you want to be in B2 for the first one. The second, it's starting in B2 to go through. If you want to not import, you want to skip one, you could say this and click skip. So that will only show 3111 Saunders Settlement Road, New York, 14132. If I don't want that, I'm going to go back to general, and let's say I don't want the zip code. Okay, I will skip the zip code, skip column, so it'll only show these three. Okay, if I click finish, it will now put this in B2, C2, and D2, and there is no zip code anymore because I said I don't care about it. Skip it. So that speeds things up definitely a lot. Now imagine if you had a whole ton of things going on that you wanted spaced out like that. Likewise, if we could take things apart, we can glue them back together too. And by gluing them back together, that's what using a function called concatenate. It's a funny word. Concatenate. All right? That means basically you're pasting it together. So for example, if I wanted last names, first names, state, zip, and monthly salary, say I wanted some of these things to be stuck together. Like for example, these two to be stuck together. Okay? And we could actually change the order too, for that matter. That's the interesting part. I'm going to go into this, H7, and I'm going to type in and I'm getting confidence intervals, which is statistics, but concatenate. Join several texts to one string. If I double click it, I get text number 1, text number 2, etc., etc. Well, this thing's pretty cool because I can start changing things, adding things in, okay? And I can change order. So if I do want George to be first, I'm going to put George, comma, Washington, and I'll just close it up. Now what's going to happen here is going to be a mistake because that's going to say George Washington. There are no spaces in here at all. I also didn't tell it to put a space in. So what I could do in between the two is after C7, the first one, I want to put a space. So I'm going to open up a quote. I'll put a space, close a quote, and comma. So technically, see how that went to text 3? So B7 is now text number 3. Text number 1 is whatever C7 is, George. Text number 2 is a blank space. Text number 3 is now the last name Washington. So if I press enter, it'll look a lot nicer with a space. Okay? And by doing this, I'm referencing everything, I can actually drag this down and it will follow through. So, for example, Mighty Baron, these two, space between. Okay? Now, how do I get this all to be nice again? Well, there's a couple different things you can do. For example, I want Virginia, zip code, and monthly salary, and I want them all in a row again. I could do George Washington to set it up in this order anyway. And then in this cell, maybe I want the three of these things to be together. So I could do another concatenate. Double click. And text number 1, maybe I put Virginia, comma, and I want a space, remember? So that's my space. Or, better yet, I want a comma and then a space. I know it sounds weird, but I'm going to say Virginia with a comma touching it, then a space, then I'm going to put in the zip code, then I'm going to put in the salary, then I'll close it. Now between the zip code and, whoops, I pressed it too quick, I'm sorry. So between the zip code and the salary, I want to do the same thing. Insert another quote, space, quote, so I have a space between the zip code and the salary. Now if you look at it this way, Virginia, comma, zip code, space, and money. Well, I don't have a money sign in there, do I? I just have the value here. So we could add those things in too. So for example, here, I could put the comma in again, see what happens. Now the comma got added after the zip code. And one more time, if I go back here, before the F7 value, the 157, I could open up a set of quotes, insert a $sign, close a quote, and I'm leaving no space here. There's no extra space here, so a $sign will touch F7. Okay? And we could drag this down the whole way too. So if we look at this, we have all first names. Now it's first and then last. We have the address, the state, the zip code, and the salary all spaced out nicely. So we can either take them apart like we did here, or we can kind of glue them back together. Okay? Now, even the cooler part about this is I can change these things without having to go in and one by one say, okay, well, I'm concatenating these pieces. Great. I want to show you another trick too. If you grab all this data here, copy it, and go off to a side and say paste the values only. They are no longer going to be linked to anything, which is really cool. Because this right here says concatenate C7 and B7. So if this thing changes to whatever this is, so did that one. This one is now just static values. So when you copy values only, that's what happens here. So why did I do that? Well, I want to fix this again because I don't want to go through and type in George, grab this one, W for Washington, get into here, V capitalized for Virginia. I don't want to do that for all of these things. What a pain, right? So what I'm going to do instead is we're going to use these functions called proper, upper, and lower. So proper, upper, and lower. Proper actually takes these values and makes them all proper case texts. So the first one will be capitalized, everything else will be lowercased. So I want that thing, to be proper. And now George is capitalized, Washington is capitalized. Okay. In fact, I'm going to insert another one here. Well, it doesn't really matter, I guess. Let me do this. I'll just make this one proper. I'll go lower, upper. Okay. So George Washington proper, and I will do equals proper for this one. And it automatically will capitalize that. Okay. It's kind of nice, right? The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to, well, actually it is good to have these switched. What do you know? I'm going to move these to uppers. and this to lower, lower, because I'm going to show you guys something. Equals proper of George Washington. I'm sorry, I used proper again. Upper. There we go. Everything is now uppercase. And likewise, when I do the same thing, I'm going to drag this since the formula is there, right? Virginia is now totally capitalized. And if I do lower, if I type it in the right way this time, I'm going to grab this thing and just make everything lowercase. And then now it shrinks it right back down to the way it used to be over here. So those are nice little things. And it doesn't really matter if they're mix and matched. Like, for example, what's in the upper function? That's here. So let me do this one here. We'll say Washington. So I have some of it capitalized, some of it not. This is still referencing this piece. So even though some of it's up, some of it's low, it doesn't really matter. This is automatically changing it to proper. So that's another, nice feature about this. Same thing with uppercase. I'm gonna go back to B17 and reference that. So B17 still, this one is now referencing B17, which is this cell over here. And it still fixes it. And lastly, same thing here. This one right here, I'm going to make it B17 that it references. And it automatically goes to lower no matter what. Okay? So that's upper, lower, proper, and concatenate. Those things are very nice, very easy features that we can start with here to make your life easier. Imagine typing a bunch of names into a telephone book or something like that. Or you imported a bunch of things from a TXT file or a Word file, and it's all in one cell. Rather than retyping these things, you can use these functions. Okay? This is where I'm going to pause it, and I'll continue with the ifs, the count ifs, sum ifs, average ifs, all those things on the next video. So give me a minute, and I will come right back to you.